What up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to episode 2 of Notes to a Self. I am your host, Kenji Shimada. How you doing? Hope you're doing well. I love all y'all. Now this episode, I know it's been taking a while, but Notes to a Self was gonna say, as above, so below. As below, so above. Principle of correspondence. I live by this daily, and I can see it in my relationships with myself and the world around me, and then the world around me speaking to me. So I use it a lot. I talk about it a lot with my friends and family, and so I thought that this was a necessary thing I must talk about before I go into other subject matters later. And subject matters is just my own thoughts shared to y'all, whoever wants to listen. So as above, so below, as below, so above. The principle of correspondence is something that's trying to show you that there is relationship between the larger scales of life and the smaller scales of life. And that if you understand the small scale of life, of the principles operating here, these principles are operating at the larger scale as well. And what's happening on these larger spectrums also are the same principles affecting these smaller spectrums. So macro, micro relationship. That we're not separate, man. That we're not separate from each other. We're not separate from the cosmos. We're not separate from the universe. We're not separate from each other. We're not separate from the entirety of life. That we are together in this. We're connected through principle. To me, that is spirit. I'm not going to talk about that too much, but it's crucial to me, and it needs to be addressed, because that's all I can talk about, really. Deep down, that's all I really have. I don't have, like, super in-depth knowledge about certain skills and tools and other things. I just try and cultivate, a good spiritual life in my own life, and that's all that I'm trying to work towards. Spiritual liberation, freedom from suffering, all these sort of things. The Buddha did it, Jesus Christ, other people in the past, talking about some very, very, I think, important things and foundational things that, if we look in our society now, with the dis-ease that we see everywhere, it seems to be a little bit of, what are we missing from life? What's all this pursuit going towards? What are we working towards? What's the point? What's the most important thing that we could be cultivating, right? To be cultivating a life of depth, a life of deep connection with self and our surroundings, with the world around us, with our family, with our communities, with nature, all these sort of things. I feel are a little bit missing in certain places. I'm not saying every circle. I know people that are deeply connected to that. I'm trying to work really towards that as well. But as above, so below is for me it's a tool. It's a tool to help me keep myself on point, that the world is always speaking to me, right? So the world is always talking to me through the grand metaphor of life. The question is, am I listening? I'd have to listen too intently, because then I might miss the point, because I'm trying to get a lesson out of it. But if I just relax and let life soak in and life settle in, then it starts to say something to me. And I'm feeding something in to the ether, and then it bounces back, and then shows me something, right? Of what I put out there, what comes back. There's causation, cause and effect always. So how is this relationship working? And, my surroundings is a metric as to how my internal workings are, in a sense. How is how is the circle around me operating when I'm in a certain state, right? If I'm in a frantic, stressed state, I tend to see discombobulated relationships. I see, I'm a bit fragmented from people. I'm not as connected as I'd like. I'm not as smooth as I'd like. My interactions are not like, bopping. But when I'm on point, I can see, when I'm a bit more calm, not overthinking things, then it's a lot smoother. So I can see this as above, so below relationship. I'm like, when things just tuk 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 tuk, things are just a little bit smoother, not so smooth, but too much thought. Right? Too much thought leads to over-analytical life. Takes you away from the moment, because the moment is very, very simple. Very, very simple, very, very simple. But it takes you away from the moment. To think about it too much, okay? To think about it's nothing wrong with it. But, like yesterday, getting stressed, just getting caught up in my worries, my concerns, and it takes me away from my moment, right? It takes me away from solution think, it puts me into problem think. So to constantly bring myself back into solution think, because in problem think, and that's where more mistakes happen. And so it's like, as above so below. I can see it, I can see what happened. My mind was in a disarray, right? So the job didn't work out as well as I'd like. And another usage of as above so below is looking at the planet Earth as a being, right? It's just one, let's say it's one human, Earth is one human being, and we are all part and parcel of this creation, right? Not even a human being, but just a being, and we are all part of it. We are creating it. So when we look outside of ourselves at the world, what do we see? People are upset, obviously, at the state of certain affairs politically, economically, socially, environmentally. There's a lot of riffraff, and obviously there's a lot of problems going on. But to me, I look at that, I'm like, this is just the reflection of our internal world projected outwardly through action over generations and generations. So it's like it's the human dream, man. It's like, you like it or not, this is the dream that we've created for ourselves. So can you see what this dream is saying about us within ourselves? There seems to be something missing. There seems to be something important missing out of this equation, because we seem to be chasing a lot of things, creating a lot of things, magnificent things, not so magnificent things, science put into amazing places, or the pursuit of science. And then some places I'm like, why the fuck are you even bothering with that, But that's not really the point at hand. It's that if I can see that inside of me, when I'm not settled, I'm not calm, I'm not dealing with myself, I'm not living up to responsibility, to my duties here as a custodian, as part and parcel, a person that's here to look after this landscape. Because if you just observe your own life, just observe, don't need to make anything of it, you might start to notice how much of an influence and impact you have here as a human being. I think we're, some people might put human beings, we're nothing, we're just scum, we're just rubbish, we're just ruining the planet. Or you look at the flip side, where these amazing creations that are able to observe ourselves, about to learn from ourselves, and we can self-observe that we are able to understand we are here being, and then see that self being here as well. So I can understand why there's disassociation, because I don't know where the disassociation happened. That's not for today. But there seems to be disassociation between a natural rhythm of life and man's world that's just skyrocketing into the world right now. And look at our technological revolution. It's just fucking firing, which is cool to see. Very cool things happening. But what I feel inside of me is that spirit, whatever you want to call it, this thing is rising. It wants to come alive. It wants to come through. It wants to be here in terms of participating with us, and we need to learn to be with it. And the spirit that I'm talking about is that principle. The principle of the macro-micro relationship, what governs the micro, what governs the macro. There is something that connects those two, because if in principle they are governed by the same principle, to me, that is spirit, right? And to those who are not spiritual, I'm not trying to say be spiritual, but this is my perspective. I have to talk about my perspective, right? If you're not spiritual, then I'd say inquire within. Carl Jung said, his exact quote was probably in German, but it's been paraphrased, and it says something like, if you go deep enough within the self, sooner or later, you will encounter the spiritual or the mystical. Because, I think certain material scientists as well, they'll just dig deeper and deeper and deeper. Sooner or later, they're just going to be ending up in this abyss. And they'll be like, I have no idea, of what's really down there. And to me, that's the great unknown, the great unraveling, the great nature of spirit. But spirit has principle, self-organizing principle. But what I was trying to say is that I can feel it rising through me, and I can feel it's trying to purge the old world from me, right? The old ways, the unhealthy ways. I can still see there's lingering old habit patterns. I can still see there's old ways within me that are trying to cling and hold on and pull me back to the old world, because it's safe, right? The old world is safe. I know what that is, but I don't want to be there. But it's comforting because it's familiar, but it doesn't help me grow because it's comfortable. And so, Plato's caves analogy of, the one who starts to leave the cave, sees there's something outside of the cave, tries to come back to tell the others there's more beyond the cave, let's say the ones inside of the ego, they don't want to accept that there is something beyond the cave, because then their reality comes crashing down, and then they have to have an existential crisis, and they have to observe themselves and have to ask a lot of deep questions. Sound familiar? So they would prefer to kill the messenger than to have to face the reality. And inside of myself, it's just like, I get it. The ego wants to hold on to these old ways. These old ways want to hold on no matter what. And sometimes I see these self-sabotaging things that I go through. I'm like, what in the Lord's name is going on? Like, I don't want to be going through that. I'm doing pretty well. But sometimes it happens. But I'm still observing myself. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on here, man? What a trip. That I'm still kind of stuck in certain ways. Which is very interesting. This way, compassion, patience as well. Not enabling self to be like, that's okay. It's like, no, if you feel that's not serving you anymore, it's not okay. But, hey, full moon. Sorry, I just had a notification. 2:34 p.m., 6th of April, full moon. Sorry. Yes, relationship, internal. I can see, and then you look outside of the world, then I can see there is chaos, right? A lot of chaos happening. A lot of old world, old systems, old institutions trying to maintain power, trying to maintain this stronghold on society, through manipulative tactics, through controlling systems, If people haven't seen certain levels of high corruption come out through whistleblowers over the last 10 years, 20 years, well, there is. I think everyone has seen or heard some semblance of high corruption in high places, political, economic, social, all this sort of stuff. But this corruption, to me, is just the disassociation. It's just disassociation from being here, being present with principle, natural principle, which has a very different pace than just like man's rocket ship, right? But when you disassociate and you've lost sense with principle, right? If you don't have principles, then corruption can happen, and wrongdoing can happen. So what can we do? For my solution of the world is come back to spirit, or come back to yourself, or come back to something deeper within who you are, and then get in touch with that. And then the healing, and then the purging and the healing happens, because spirit knows, it innately knows what needs to be done. And then if you are there to listen and embark on an adventure with spirit. But as above, so below, then the confusion is slowly dissipating, because I look at the world as the great being that we're part of, and I'm like, I get it. The corruption is all spooging out to the surface. It might seem like there's more corruption, but I feel like this corruption's been happening for a long time. I feel it's just coming to the surface, and we're trying to get rid of it. We're trying to get rid of it, of inequality, disempowered people, etc. And as above, so below moment, right? Technology, what's happening now, that technology is starting to being disseminated so far and wide that this power, the technological power, is now available to most people. You have a smartphone, you have access to information, you have access to internet. Certain countries have not access to that internet, but slowly this is happening. If you want to create something, you have, access to it. And my friend was talking about his friend that bought a 3D printer, made parts for another 3D printer, and then made another 3D printer, and then made more 3D printers from 3D printers, and the cycle continues. I thought it was funny that, even these tools are starting to come, to us, or drones, like just a very random example, but it's like, I see drones for like $80 now. Do you know what I mean? Whereas back in the day when they were coming out, they'd be at least $1,000. So it's like the affordability of all these technologies are starting to make their way to the individual. But to me, that is an external manifestation of what's happening to spiritual renewal that's coming back into the community, into planet Earth. Because we can't go on without spirit, right? It's just not possible. We can't. If we can acknowledge that we're spiritual beings, or there is something deeper, deep down, and there's something more than just ourselves that we can tap into, that we are part of it, right? This is why there's relationship. We wouldn't be able to have relationship if we're not part of it. So it's not like it's beyond us, right? We are part and parcel of it. But the as above, so below. I can see it within me, and then what's happening in the world, and all these, the corruption side, technological revolution side, people wanting to strive for, economic well-being, economical well-being, environmental well-being, well-being of health. Like I'm seeing the health revolution happening as well, the self-care revolution, and now like mental well-being as well. So it's like sooner or later it's gonna be like, okay, we've done physical well-being, and now the mental well-being has become this huge phenomena that we're now dealing with. Oh my god, humans are not just body, we are also mind. So sooner or later it's gonna be like, oh my god, we are not body, we are not just mind. Also, we are not just body, we're not just mind, we are also spirit. So we must, deal with that as well. What is spirit? What does it mean to go and embark on a spiritual actualization of self? What does that require? Privacy of information, just a lot of things. Once again, I'm not going to go down there right now. I just want to talk about as above, so below, because I'm going to mention it a lot more. But this principle starts to show me certain insights, and that it motivates me more to tap in deeper to myself. And deeper is just calm. Deeper is just away from stress. Settling more. A more calmer sense of being, because still waters run deep, right? My Kung Fu teacher tells me that you cannot see your reflection in running water, so still your mind. Still. When it's still, it starts to settle. Right? The mud starts to settle. As above, so below. So it's just like the same thing. You let that water settle, and then all the dust and all that things will go to the bottom, right? You can see clearly. But if you're spinning that water with the mud in it, it's so murky, you can't have clarity. If I'm looking for a ring, I would probably just wait for the mud to settle. If I've dropped something in there, same thing. If I'm looking for something within self, I need to settle. I need to let it settle. As above, so below. As below, so above. Same thing. Principles. Naturally occurring principles are ever present. So the more we get to tap into our own somatic intelligence and the intelligence within, intelligence from spirit, from that guidance, you don't have to call it spirit, right? It's more like, I would like for everyone to inquire, at least, if they are not already familiar. Inquire. But with who? Yourself. You have the tool, this body. We are here with a body. So this body roots us. It connects us to this world. And that's why you can disassociate with mind, but you can't disassociate with body, right? In terms of the body doesn't leave this reality. So you can try and, I guess, go through life and be ignorant of what's happening with you in terms of how much stress is building up in your body, a lack of taking care of thyself, You can try and be like, pursuing, and the body's just running through the motions. Maybe the body's trying to speak to you, but you're not in touch with your body, so you get sick, you get ill, or you're not really aware of how far your mind is going, where is the mind? Where is it? Is it really here? Or are you thinking about something else? Where is it? So, when you're separate, disassociated, you won't also be able to see the grand metaphor of life, because you're missing it. You're missing the point. It's here. If your mind is out there in the future, or it's in the past of what happened yesterday, oh fuck, I did fuck that up yesterday, or tomorrow, oh my god, what's tomorrow, shit, what's next week, I gotta do this, it's okay. Like, things need to be dealt with. I'm not saying deal with things, but they can only be dealt as quickly as humanly possible. So, one thing at a time, whatever's in front of your face. This is something I have to remind myself every single fucking day, because I'm so easy to try and chase that future dream, So easy to be like, next mission, next project. But it's like, yeah, we have this project here in front of our faces. So come back to the moment, day to day. And so when I'm not here, as above, so below, my world starts reflecting to me a little bit of a, disharmony. Either I just trip a little bit more, or I'm dropping things, or, like I said, my interaction ain't as smooth. The world speaks to me, right? And reflects to me my inside, because I'm clearly not listening. And when I'm listening, I can see the radiance, right? And then you can see that you are empowered to make a change. You have power to make a difference. Not in everything, but in your sphere, right? In your arena, where you stand, you have influence and power more than you could ever imagine. More than you could ever imagine. And I would just love everyone to keep reminding themselves how powerful you are, what you are doing with all your power, where are we going with all of this humanity stuff. Because humanity to me right now is at a bubbling point. Hence why I have to do this. Like, I'm losing my mind not speaking about these things. In terms of, there's a revolution happening. To me, there's the technological revolution and the spiritual revolution, right? I believe that technology is here to help spirit, that we are here to coexist together, but without the right foundations, it can take over, right? If the ego or the mind takes over too much, leaving the heart and the soul, at the bay, then we're not going to have, the guiding principles or the things that are important to us. If we leave the heart at bay, what are we creating but a mess or a shit show later to come, or just total domination? Oh my god, does that sound familiar? Do you know what I mean? If you're just too me, ego, and you're not connected to self and the surroundings. So, that's above, so below. Try it out. See what happens. See if you can start to see it in your own life. It's everywhere. It's always and everywhere, ever present. The principle goes nowhere. The self goes nowhere. So, if you learn to calm down a bit more, whatever your practice is, find your practice. Everyone needs a practice. It doesn't matter if you can just acknowledge that you have a practice. If you have a job, most likely you can turn that into a practice. All that needs to happen is during that job, be aware of your breath. How far are you from your breath? Are you more attentive to your breath? Keep it simple. Work, is still connected to that principle. So work, whilst you're working, it will unravel things to you because you are in relation with other people. How are these people relating back to you? How are you feeding into the circuit? How is that information coming back? As above, so below. Your circumstance will reflect your inner workings, right? So we are all capable of making change. And I just want everyone to remember, you're where you're meant to be, and I love you. We love you. And everybody deep down, I believe, loves each other to a certain degree. Because if you didn't give a fuck, would you even care about anyone around you? I don't know. Have a think. But I just want everyone to remember, you are where you're meant to be. And this personal journey, self-actualization, such an important step. Imagine if everyone was on the path of self-actualization in terms of unraveling what is already been, a seed has been planted inside of you. It's already there. Spirit is already there within you. It wants to move. You see children that just want to move. And adults and parents were obviously here to help guide and give them knowledge and understanding about this world. But, it's there. The seed is there. We all have it. It ain't dead as well if you're, it doesn't matter how old you are. It ain't dead. It can come back alive. And it just needs time. If you're really stressed, it's going to squish you a little bit. You need time to breathe. You need time to breathe. So breathe. Find a practice that brings you to your breath. And see it. See the practice unfold, see the world unfold. And hopefully, once you start figuring out, oh, this is how I do things. Oh my god, this is how things are happening within me, right? So, last piece of information. When you start to go deeper within yourself, you'll notice, what's happening within you. And then you'll realize there's naturally causing principle of causality, cause and effect. Mind, body, there's cause and effect. Thoughts, emotions, action, thoughts, emotions, actions. Which ends up in a result. Right? Result, in the end, feeds, again, the self, comes in through thought, feeling, and reaction, action, reaction, chain reaction. You start to see causality, cause and effect, cause and effect, cause and effect, cause and effect, cause and effect. Thought, what thought creates what feelings, right? What triggers what emotions, or what sensations, what happens in the body, what happens when you do these things. So you're starting to play with the principles that are already at play in yourself. So you just got to observe. You're observing the natural principle between mind and body. This relationship, mind-body relationship. Mind-body-spirit relationship. The wise man, the child, the adult, the wise man. Right? Who is this wise man? Who is this wizard? Name it for yourself. I have mine. Name it for yourself. But inquire. So I'm just saying that if you can start to observe within, you will then get in touch. You have the power to get in touch with universal principle and start to understand it. When you start to understand it, you start to see it at play everywhere. And when you see it at play everywhere, like, oh my God, I get it. I understand. Sorry if that peaked out with the volume. But you can start to have more understanding. You can see why people are acting the way they are. Or why, a great sphere is acting a certain way they are. Or why the planet is at this place where they are. Because you can start to see it in yourself. As below, so above. So, and this gives me a sense of peace. For me, it gives me some grounding. So, I would love if you just inquire. You don't have to. The only reason I'm doing this is maybe if you could. But I'm going to talk about it later. I'll mention it. So, slightly longer episode. I don't know how long the next one will be. But I just had to go through it all and hope you got something out of it. I will most definitely do another episode. Who knows what it'll be. Probably about frustration, difficulties of life, and how we deal with it all. But until next time, thank you for joining me. I'm your host, Kenji Shimada. Notes to a self, we are at Kenji's World. I will see you next time.